Japan is one of the biggest international pipelines for Major League Baseball, with players like Ichiro and Shohei Ohtani revolutionizing the 21st century. However, in this video, I've created an MLB team in Japan, and we're going to rebuild them into a champion. Introducing the team, we are starting out with only 3 players from Japan, and the reason for that is I felt like adding half of the Dodgers rotation would just be a bit too overpowered. The biggest name here is Masataka Yoshida, who I'm surprised to see as a 69 overall, although I guess he has fallen off this year with the Red Sox. He's 31 years old, but with B potential and pretty good contact coming in, he should definitely be our best offensive player and could become a core player of the rebuild. Along with that, there's Yuki Matsui and Shintaro Fujinami, who are gonna be our best 2 pitchers. Now obviously it would have been nice to add Suzuki or Imanaga from the Cubs, but they're just a little too good for a team that's supposed to be an expansion level roster. We're starting the journey of rebuilding a team that's ranked 30th at pretty much every single position, and the big challenge in this video is I'm only allowed to acquire players that are from mainly Japan, but also South Korea and Taiwan, just in case we need it. Now I want to clarify that I'm not saying South Korea or Taiwan have the same baseball culture as Japan. I feel like they're good backup countries just in case the draft doesn't generate enough Japanese players. Masataka Yoshida is easily our best hitter at 69 overall, and of course the usefulness with him is we can actually keep him, but the rest of our team's full of deep potential guys who will be replaced. Here's Yoshida's first at bat with a man on first base, and we're gonna get runners at the corners as he singles. In their first game ever, the Samurai have a chance to take the early lead, but fly out, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's the closest we get to scoring, as we're down 3-0. In the end, we did not score a run, but that was not as bad of a blowout as I expected, although it's no surprise that this first season is gonna be almost entirely about the draft. We need pretty much everything, but I'm gonna highlight starting pitchers since the game generates so many of them. And for our second and third need, why not go with shortstop and center field? Those are pretty valuable positions. Now I have to go through every single prospect to find players from Japan, South Korea, or Taiwan, and at least early on, I am not seeing anything. I feel like the game does generate a good amount of Japanese players every year, and this should at least be easier than when I did a Europe-only challenge. Finally, at 140, we have found our first player in this reliever, which is not a good start. Coming in, I was certain this would be easier than the Europe video, but now I'm not really sure, as we have only found 2 players and they are both relief pitchers. Finally, here's someone from South Korea, also a reliever though, so it seems we might not get a single position player in this first class, and finally, here's a second baseman. He definitely doesn't look good, but I'll take what I can get, especially because we don't have any other options. There's another reliever. Suddenly, at the end of this class, I'm finding a lot of players, although they're not ranked, and that is not exactly good for us. And the way this game works is if they don't improve once we scout them, they will not appear on the draft board at all. Just to show you guys what I'm working with, I found 11 players, but out of those 11, only 2 of them have a draft rank, and they're both relievers. This is gonna be really tough. Things are definitely looking bleak, but I did forget that I can still discover players. Maybe we can uncover someone from Japan. Maybe we get lucky and discover the next Ohtani, but at this point, I'm kinda just hoping for the next Yusei Kikuchi, as we do discover 3 prospects on the first week of discovery, although none of them are from any of the countries we can choose from. Although none of them are gonna be eligible. At least Steven Yamaguchi looks good though, as he stays at rank number 146 and might be our day 1 closer. He is a confirmed add to our draft board, and we're gonna see if Akira Yoshida is also a good player. I was about to advance to the next week, but then I saw that I only checked out the discovered starting pitchers and did not look at relievers and closers. A good closer is exactly what we need, and so far there's someone from the Netherlands and someone from Chinese Taipei. Taiwan is not even in the game, as they're listed under Chinese Taipei, and because I was looking for Taiwan, I skipped right over these players in the initial search and should be able to add a few more players to the board. That will give us 4 more players on the board, which certainly isn't much, but for a team starting from scratch, anything helps. Thankfully, the second reliever we scouted also looks like a good player, but our discovery guys found 2 more players, including a starter from Japan. That is huge. John Ono is now the number 1 player on the board, and even though he is very raw at 22 years old, he might become our ace of the future. Now we're discovering catchers, which is never successful, but we're gonna try it out anyways, as we still only have 3 victories on the year. We're about a month into the year, and Masataka Yoshida is our best player, but certainly not by much, with a 549 OPS, and even though he's 69 overall, I was kinda hoping for better numbers. As As our closer, Yuki Matsui has only pitched 1.2 innings, which I probably need to change, but a player who has gotten playing time is Shintaro Fujinami, and his numbers have been horrible. Thankfully, there's a lot of relievers on the board because we might need them as we do discover a catcher, but he is not from Japan. Fortunately for us, John Ono does look like a decent player at best, but my biggest question with this rebuild is how many position players we're gonna get, as the only guy who's ranked on the board is William Choi. As a contact hitter with a decent ceiling, I really hope he's good for us. And in a challenge like this, we're restricted to the players that the draft board gives us, as we discover more players, but we can't draft any of them. We are simming another week and hoping for the best from William Choi, and fortunately, he is slightly better than his value at 125 with solid contact and decent enough potential. Pulling a center fielder is extremely good for season 1 as we discover more players, including the number 15 player from the class, who of course we cannot draft. Unfortunately, that was one of 8 players and we can't draft a single one. We have now scouted all 5 of the players that are actually ranked on our board, so the remaining 10 players on the board are complete wild cards and unranked. However, as a closer, I do believe that Walter O has the best chance to surprise us, but unfortunately after a week of scouting, he is not ranked and therefore won't show up on the board. That is so unfortunate, as we do discover another player from Taiwan, but he's just not very good. I'm gonna leave him on the board for one more week just to see if his ranking changes, as the Samurai are currently 12 and 40. On the bright side though, Masataka Yoshida has turned his season around and now has an OPS above 700, as he is leading the team with 20 RBIs and 55 hits. Then on the pitching side of things, Shintaro Fujinami still has an ERA above 6, while Yuki Matsui has pitched 17 innings but has an ERA of 0. It is way too early to say anything, but with numbers like these, he might actually be our best player for the future, as he's under contract for the next 4 seasons. It looks like we're gonna need some relievers, especially as Walter O's rating has not changed, and I'm not sure if we're discovering anybody else, as it seems to be dominated by Latin American players. And this late into the scouting cycle, I'm not sure if we're gonna discover anybody else, as here's 2 pitchers from Dominican Republic. None of the remaining players on the board are showing any promise, so we're going into the draft with the worst record in baseball and only 5 draftable players, and one of them's injured. You've gotta be kidding me. The first pick of the franchise is an injured center fielder who doesn't even look that good, and all I can hope for is that his injury does not impact his potential. Next up, we're taking reliever Steven Yamaguchi, followed by our only discovery player John Ono in competitive round B. We are making 5 selections in this first draft, with 3 of them being relievers, and after making our final selection, all we can do is simulate the rest of the draft. Obviously, we have some room for this first draft class to not be the greatest thing on planet Earth, but of course I'd like to hit on a few players, and at least at first glance, it looks like we actually did okay. I'm feeling pretty good about it, especially with Steven Yamaguchi coming in at 74 overall. From day one, he would already be the best player on our team and might be a candidate for our closer of the future. It also seems that the injury did not affect William Choi as much as it could have, which is definitely a good thing. And while he's not super flashy, I do like the contact and plate skills. Then after that, there's John Ono, who's coming in with 80 potential, which is the highest on the squad. And along with that, he is 62 overall and has plenty of room to grow. All things considered, I am very happy with this first draft class, and I really hope that it makes a difference. With that out of the way, we are simulating the rest of the season, getting to 30 wins in August, and ending the season with a 39 and 123 record. That's pretty much what I expected. Masataka Yoshida was our best offensive player and developed from 69 to 71 overall, and while his second half was certainly worse than his first half, his numbers did improve. Regardless though, this was the worst season of his career, so I'm hoping that he puts up better numbers in the future. After that, the only other players we're talking about are Shintaro Fujinami and Yuki Matsui, and to my surprise, their seasons went in completely different directions. Fujinami ended the year with a 3.10 ERA, which is definitely a surprise, and while Matsui did regress from a 0 ERA, that was pretty inevitable, and his stats still improved considerably. Even after drafting 3 relievers, it's very nice to see that we have guys we can lean on, because pending free agency, we have only added 5 new players to the team. Several of our minor league players are ready to play right now, but I think I want to keep them in the minor leagues, and this is mostly because I don't want to waste their service time or disrupt their development by bringing them up too early. We have a long way to go before we're ready to compete, but just to give us the best chance possible, we are firing our entire staff because they're not helping us out. Aside from Yoshida, we're not really paying players, so we have a lot of money to spend. So we're trying to hire the best staff that we possibly can. Unfortunately, as I kind of expected, there is not a single player in free agency that we can sign. And at least checking out players on other teams, Ohtani and Yamamoto are probably never gonna be there. But 5 years down the line, I'm hoping we can go all in for Roki Sasaki. This might be our best chance to add an impact player of the entire rebuild. And maybe before that happens, we can go after Shota Imanaga or Seiya Suzuki. At least for this year though, our best chance of acquiring another player is Chang from the Pirates. But the only way that can happen is if they do not offer him a contract. Unfortunately though, that did not happen, so we ended up making no moves going into season number 2. Here's our roster, and while the season 1 draft certainly gave us some good players, I'm hoping for a blue chip level talent in season 2. Checking out our draft class, I see an international player at number 3, although he's from Germany, and that would have been great for my Europe rebuild. Unfortunately, after that, none of the blue chip international guys are gonna be from Japan, but finally at 53, I found a left fielder who has very good potential. This could be exactly what we need to jumpstart the rebuild, as this is a switch hitting left fielder with power, and I'm really hoping he works out. We are starting the year strong, scouting potential franchise saving player Sung Young Hoo, and I believe he might be able to jumpstart the rebuild. After scouting, he is the number 25 player in the class and a lock for our first round pick. That is great news, especially considering I can't find any other players through discovery. So we're going through the draft board trying to find someone, and here's a top 100 reliever. I know we have plenty of relievers, but I don't think we have another choice, as Tommy Song is going on the board along with Michael Nishi, who we actually discovered last year. One thing that MLB The Show has done right is recreate players that didn't get drafted, as we also have Lee Kim on the board. That will hopefully give us a few more starters with potential, as here's another bullpen arm. So this draft class has a lot of potential so far, and Chu Lin might have just put it over the edge. He is a 20-year-old with 75 to 99 potential, and with such a low overall, I'm thinking he's gonna be on the high end of that. That puts this draft class over the edge, as we have 6 draftable players, along with 3 guys who are not ranked. We are gonna go down the board, scouting them one by one, while also continuing to discover, as the Samurai are 8 and 19 to start the year. However, Masataka Yoshida is heating up and has a 283 average with an 850 OPS, which is far better than I expected. And if he can keep this up, this would be his best major league season yet. Along with him, it has also been a good start to the year for Shintaro Fujinami and Yuki Matsui, as our 3 Japanese players that we started out with continue to improve. We will check on our recent draft picks later in the season, but for now we're gonna continue scouting players like Michael Nishi and Lee Kim, and we are off to a decent start, as it seems Michael Nishi could be an MLB level starter. He's definitely a high floor, low ceiling type player, but with the current rotation we have, I'll take whatever we can get. However, out of all the players on our board, the guy I'm most interested in is Chu Lin, who looks like he could be a potential steal. Obviously, he is a developmental prospect, but his ceiling looks absolutely insane, and I'm curious where he's gonna be after scouting. So far, we've put together a pretty good draft board, even though we're 14 and 38, and after scouting Lin up to 100%, I'm guessing his potential will be somewhere in the low 90s. It would be nice to discover another position player, as we have not drafted many, but this guy's from Mexico, so I'm really hoping we find something in the outfield. We're scouting the final draftable player on our board, Jason Takahashi, who is another not ranked player, but I'm hoping that changes. Midway through June, the Samurai are sitting at 20 and 51, which is pretty much on pace with last year's record, but the big difference this year is Masataka Yoshida is playing a lot better. This time last year, his OPS was under 700, and with his improved slugging percentage, I'm more optimistic that he can be a long-term part of this team. The same also goes for Yuki Matsui, who's sitting with a 1.53 ERA and a .85 whip, which is awesome, as it feels like him and Shintaro Fujinami continue to improve. Going back to scouting though, Jason Takahashi is still not ranked, and we didn't discover any new players. Just like last year, we have 5 draftable players on our board, which is certainly better than I expected, but the difference this year is we have 2 position players who I'm very excited about. Starting off, we have a switch-hitting left fielder who's ranked 25 in the class, and at 18 years old, it's very likely he comes in with high 80s to low 90s potential. That is already a great start, but then after that, we have a first baseman in Chu Lin. Looking at his floor alone, the value here is insane, but it's likely going to take him a long time to develop, so he's truly a lottery ticket. We are starting off the second draft taking our left fielder, whose name I'm not even going to try to pronounce for a second time, and just like last year, he's another outfielder, although certainly much less of a reach. He could very well be the savior of the franchise, but now with our second and third selections, we're taking starting pitchers. We start off taking Michael Nishi, followed by Lee Kim with the next pick, before going back to the bullpen where we drafted 3 guys last season. For the second year in a row, we are ending off the draft in round 4, taking Chu Lin, who might be the best value available. At the start of August, the Samurai are still really bad, sitting at 29 and 81, and while Matsui and Shintaro Fujinami have both been good, it seems that Masataka Yoshida has regressed just a little bit. It seems that Masataka Yoshida has been regressing ever since his hot start to the year, which is not good for a 32-year-old. On the bright side though, arguably our best draft pick from last season, Steven Yamaguchi, has a great ERA at AAA, and as a result, he has improved his game a ton. He could form a nasty bullpen trio with Matsui and Fujinami, along with 2 other bullpen arms we drafted last year in Walter Seo and Akira Yoshida. Alongside those 3, we drafted William Choi in the first round, who so far is not really impressing, as he has only put up a 243 average at AA. It seems he needs a little bit more time to develop, and the same thing can be said for John Ono, who so far as a starter has a losing record and a pretty bad whip. However, I am optimistic about his development, as out of all of our prospects, he has the best potential and is still improving despite his struggles. Because we're in the start of August, we can also see our draft class, and I'm really hoping for the best. We are jumping straight into it, and there's an 88 potential at the very top, and I think who is going to be a great player someday. Obviously, that's not right now because he's 57 overall with pretty poor contact, but at 18 years old, he has a lot of time to figure it out. There is a lot of power in his bat to go along with plus athleticism, which is a great starting point. Unfortunately, after that though, the next 3 selections were all pitchers who are okay at best, and while I do feel like Lee Kim and Michael Nishi can develop, that 70 potential is lower than I was hoping for. Then there's Tommy Song, who's coming in at 56 overall with 69 potential, and even though he's 18 years old, these stats need a lot of work. Then to end the draft, you can ignore Guillermo Calderon since I accidentally signed him and will have to release him in the offseason. So our true final selection was Chu Lin, who is also 89 potential, although he's sitting at 44 overall. However, I do feel like that contact is at least workable, so he could start out in AA, and we'll see how fast he can progress. He's a great value in the 4th round, but another guy who's gonna take some time to develop. All things considered, I wish that one of our pitchers had higher potential than they do, but with the 2 position players that we got, I really have no room to complain. We are simulating the rest of season number 2 with nothing left to prove, as we finished with the same exact record as last year, 39 and 123. We finished just 53 games back in our very competitive division, as Masataka Yoshida did have a better season than last year, putting together a 66 RBI year. Not really much else to talk about on the offense or in the rotation, so we're moving straight to the bullpen, where Yuki Matsui put up great numbers and improved significantly. He is nearly up to 80 overall and still has 4 years left on his deal, and with the way he's playing right now, he might even get another contract after that. Then our other reliever from Japan is Shintaro Fujinami, who really turned things around, finishing with respectable numbers and getting up to 73 overall. On top of that, I also extended him last year, investing in 6 years of his future, so he's not hitting free agency for a long time. Checking out the rest of our prospects, John Ono is up to 65 overall, and it looks like our first round pick, William Choi, is up to B potential. That is surprising because I didn't think he had the best season, but clearly he turned things around, getting up to 64 overall at 21 years old. Also, in his first year at AAA, Steven Yamaguchi has reached his potential at 75 overall, while Walter Seo and Akira Yoshida should be right behind him. Not only are we the worst team in baseball, but we have our work cut out for us, as one of our division rivals, Shohei Ohtani, won his 4th MVP, while the Padres won the World Series. We need to find a way to improve pretty fast, and I'm hoping there's something in free agency this year, as we scroll down and the number 13th ranked free agent is Ha-Sung Kim. He is from South Korea, so we can acquire him from the Tampa Bay Rays, and while he does want a lot of money, it should be worth it. He is 87 overall, which would be the best player on our board by a long shot, so I'm doing everything I possibly can to get him, along with Chang from the Pirates, who I'm keeping a close eye on. He is now up to B potential, but at 25 years old and with several shortstops in front of him, I would not be surprised if the Pirates did not re-sign him. Even though those players are not from Japan, they're the only MLB level players we could actually acquire at this point, as Shota Imanaga does not hit free agency until 2030. However, while it looks like Seiya Suzuki was traded to the Phillies, he hits free agency next year. I do have to note that along with Chang, the Pirates also have center fielder Young-Hoo Lee, and I really wish we had something to trade for him because he's 28 years old with B potential, but at least his contract is up in 3 years. Signing Ha-Sung Kim could be our first building block in the mission to build a competitive roster, as he's 87 overall at 31 years old. We were the first team to offer Kim a contract, so I'm really hoping that gives us the advantage. He's signing the papers, and there he is! He's coming to the Samurai! 5 years, $19.97 million for Ha-Sung Kim, as we acquire our best player yet. That is a huge deal, and now just to keep the momentum going, we're making a trade. Ji-won Bae is currently in AAA for the Royals, so it shouldn't take that much to acquire him, as we're throwing in 3 players and make the move. After a quiet offseason in our first year of the rebuild, we definitely made a splash, signing the best free agent we possibly could have, along with making our first trade for Ji-won Bae. Those are noticeable improvements, but we have a long way to go before being anything other than the worst team in baseball. Because of this alone, I am keeping all of our prospects down in the minors just to give them more time to develop, and once they're ready to reach the majors, I'll bring them all up at once just to save their service time. Most notably, the 2 most important prospects in the system, Chu Lin and Sung Hyun Hu, are starting out in AA. Hu specifically was our first round pick and is coming in as the number 17 prospect in baseball, and his combination of power and athleticism as a switch hitter is very intriguing. I'm excited to say that this video is sponsored by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is a great place to use your ball knowledge to win cash while watching sports, and this app could not be easier to use. Just pick more or less on a few player stats, and you could win up to 2,000 times your cash on a single lineup. For today's lineup, I am looking at our options, and I'm really feeling good about Shohei Ohtani, so I'm predicting him to hit a home run. That's an easy one, but now for our next selection, I'm going for a bit of a wild card in Yu Darvish, who just a few starts ago threw a gem against the Mets. I'm feeling pretty good about those 2 selections, but now with my final one, I see Logan Webb, who's coming off of back-to-back starts with double-digit strikeouts. He will be the final addition to my flex play, as Prize Picks is literally this easy. Best of all, Prize Picks will give you back $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup, so win or lose, you're getting $50 for playing. This is a limited time promotion that you can only access using code Scrawny or using the link in my description to download the app now. We are slowly but surely coming along, as we finally have some 70 overalls and even an 87 overall in the lineup, and while we're still waiting on the rotation to develop, we do have 2 bullpen arms that we can continue to build around. We have nearly doubled the core of our team on the MLB roster, while also drafting some of our most promising prospects yet. Our left fielder, who is 18 years old, but is already the number 17 ranked prospect in baseball, and as a first round pick, we're counting on him to be the savior of our franchise. It is time for another opening day where we're taking on Philadelphia, and while I don't expect us to win, this is the debut of Ji-won Bae and Ha-Sung Kim for the Samurai. In the bottom of the 3rd, Bae singles and steals 2nd, so now Yoshida is trying to drive him in, but cannot do it. I'm very curious what type of impact our new additions can make, but early on, I don't think it's gonna mean much when our team is this bad, as we've only scored 1 run against Christopher Sanchez, but here is a Yoshida double. That will set up Kim with an RBI opportunity, but he flies out deep into center field, infield. And although we lost this game, simming to the end, we put up 5 runs in the 7th inning. No surprise, our pitching is terrible, but we actually split this series, and scoring 8 runs against Philadelphia is kind of a flex. Things are looking better for the Samurai, who have the #1 pick in the draft, so I'm hoping there's a promising prospect near the top of the board. Unfortunately though, going through the list, I'm not seeing much of anything, as we're approaching the 100th prospect with nobody from Japan, at least until Albert Nishi. He's been in a couple classes in the past, but never got drafted, and while I'm obviously gonna scout him, I was hoping that our top prospect would be just a little bit better. Maybe Nishi can surprise us and have 83 potential and 83 overall, but right now I highly doubt it. We had a good draft last year, so this could just be our good luck coming back down, as there's another repeat in Jason Takahashi. Repeats are not necessarily bad, but obviously we're hoping for some new players, since both of these guys were not good enough to get drafted last year. Now I have to correct myself, because I thought that I drafted a Nishi last year, and I did, but it looks like it's Michael Nishi instead of Albert Nishi. Therefore, it looks like the guy we're going after is actually not a repeat after all, and it looks like we could have starting pitcher brothers on the team. That's pretty cool. We really need our discovery guys to cook, because I'm not seeing a lot of draftable players as we win a series against Houston. We are 5-8 to start the year, which is only tied for last place, and obviously it's too early to say anything, but Masataka Yoshida and Ji-Won Bae are off to very good starts. On the other hand, Kim has been a little bit cold, so hopefully that turns around as the year goes on. After a week of scouting, it looks like we're definitely drafting Albert Nishi, as he stays around a 68 to 78 potential, and that walks per 9 is more than serviceable. That is encouraging, but I'm also hoping that our discovery guys can really help us out, as we do find a bunch of international pitchers, including Tom Key from Chinese Taipei. Unfortunately, he is not ranked, so hopefully that goes up, as he would be a great addition to our bullpen, along with potentially Stephen Fong. This is a genuine question for you guys, because I don't really know which names are popular in East Asia, but so far I'm seeing a lot of guys named either Tom or Tommy. For example, here's another one, as we find a third baseman in Tommy Kim, who at least is a position player, but in this rebuild, I think we've already found about 5 or 6 players named Tom. Let me know down in the comments if I'm just getting insanely weird luck with these names, as we do scout the third baseman, but he unfortunately doesn't look very good. This draft class is really not off to a good start, so I'm hoping Discovery can save us, because so far this is looking like our worst draft class yet, as we rediscover Tom Zhu and a new guy, Tom Tanana. The next player on the board that we need to scout is Jason Takahashi, and I haven't even scouted him yet, but he's already not ranked. That is not a good start, so I'm really hoping he can turn things around, because we desperately need another quality starting pitcher, as we do have John Ono, but Michael Nishi and Lee Kim are kind of wildcard players, and I'm not sure where their careers are gonna take them. Things only get worse for the Samurai, who are 6-21, so despite trading for Ji-Won Bae and signing Ha-Sung Kim to a big contract, we're not looking any better. To make things even worse, Jason Takahashi stays not ranked, so he will almost certainly not be in the draft class. That is really bad, because unless we discover more players, we are down to just 3 draftable guys, and Stuart Yamaguchi is our final hope. We're throwing him on the board and hoping that he doesn't go not ranked, but we're also trying to discover a catcher, which might be the hardest position to get. Even with an improved lineup, the Samurai are on pace to have their worst season ever, as they are 7-25, although Ha-Sung Kim is starting to heat up, which could be good news. Obviously, winning right now is not a priority, but considering that our roster is more talented than it was last year, I'm expecting to at least break 39 wins. Finally, we got some good news in scouting, as after a week, Tom Tanana went from not ranked to 174. That will officially give us our 4th draftable player, which may not seem like much, but of course it's still progress. We also discovered an infielder, and we could really use another position player, and fortunately, Jae-an is from Chinese Taipei. He is a second baseman coming in at rank number 70, and second base just so happens to be one of our biggest positions of need. If he stays anywhere near rank 70, he will be the #1 prospect on the board. This week of scouting could make or break our draft, as we are hoping for the best, and Jae-an is rank 80. That will give us a very good high floor player. Obviously, the potential being lower than his overall is a little bit concerning, but ultimately that's a good high floor player, and obviously we can use as many position players as we can get. At the start of June, the Samurai are 15-43, which is a little bit better, and it seems that Ha-Sung Kim has been a huge factor in their improvement, as his OPS is up to 870. Unfortunately though, it does seem that Masataka Yoshida is on a cold streak, even though he's still developing, and after a pretty fast start, Ji-Wan Bei has an OPS under 600. That is not ideal for the player that we just traded for, but at least our two relievers, Fujinami and Matsui, are still performing. Then for the young guys, as you would expect, none of them are close to the majors, but we're still seeing some very good progress down in AA. Most notably, 23-year-old starting pitcher John Ono is putting up elite numbers and could be a player to watch out for down the line. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I just got very excited seeing that we discovered a guy named Ichiro, but unfortunately, he looks like a Temu version compared to the Hall of Famer. We're gonna scout him anyways, just because we can, as it would be very nice to get one more draftable player. Towards the end of June, scouting is not going much better, but to my surprise, we're actually winning a lot more games, as our win percentage is now over 30% thanks to several wins down the stretch. That is good news, as we're going into the draft with 5 draftable players, and unlike in the past, Discovery actually made a huge difference as we found 3 players that we can take. Our top prospect, second baseman Jae-on, happens to be at a great position of need, as we already have a shortstop in Ha-Sung Kim, but he is by far our most talented position player, so we're definitely lacking. We are shocking the baseball world, making Jae-on the #1 pick in the draft, and I'd be willing to bet that most GMs in the league have no idea who this guy is. He's in a Rockies jersey, which is definitely a glitch, but hopefully sooner rather than later, he's gonna be representing the Samurai. Now in the second round, we are taking Albert Nishi, who is the brother of another pitcher we drafted, Michael Nishi. The two brothers are being taken just 2 years apart, so hopefully they can both make the big league rotation, and simulating to competitive round B, we're taking a third baseman in Tommy Kim. Without Discovery, this draft would have been a whole lot worse, as we only would have had 2 draftable guys on the board, and all things considered, we are very lucky to even be taking 5 players. I once again feel like that was a good draft class, as we are 29 and 67 at the break, and to my surprise, we have a new leader in RBIs, and it's not Yoshida or Ha-Sung Kim, it is Tristan English. He was an original player on the expansion roster, and he's actually performing quite well, and even though he's not going to be a part of our future, it's good to see that we have somebody producing at least somewhat average. Aside from Kim and Yoshida, the only other players worth mentioning are Matsui and Fujinami, who both continue good years, and they have both been consistent players the past 3 seasons for us, which is definitely needed. The team is improving, and that's not even taking into account the development of some of our top prospects, as we have players that could be ready within the next couple of years. Along with that, we're also going into a big free agent period where guys like Seiya Suzuki are hitting the open market and will be receiving competitive offers from the Samurai. Now at the start of August, it is time to view our third draft class, where we selected 5 players that are eligible for the team, and that is not looking great. Jae-on and Albert Nishi are high floor, low ceiling players, which I'm totally fine with, but I would be lying if I didn't say that I was disappointed, because I was hoping that their overalls would be in the high 70s. Nonetheless though, they're both good players, and Jae-on should at least be on the bench, and with a 70 walks per 9, I could see Albert Nishi being a back-end starter. Unfortunately after that, Tommy Kim is definitely a bust, and both of these relievers are going to be decent at best. I would say this is our worst draft class so far, and we really need to hope that Season 4 does us a little better. On the bright side, this was our best season yet, as we won 43 games, and only finished 51 games behind the Dodgers. Looking at the numbers, I would say this was a solid first year for Ha-Sung Kim, but certainly not anything special, and considering that we brought him on to be the superstar of the team, we need him to perform better in future seasons. He was probably our best player, but right up there with him was Masataka Yoshida, who seems to get better every year after starting at a 68 overall. Remember that he also has B potential, and even though he's 33 years old, I feel like we can get a few more good years out of him. Ha-Sung Kim was our big offseason acquisition, but we also brought in Ji-Wan Bei through trade, and while this was not his best season, his numbers did improve, and he's gonna be under contract for the next 4 years. We might be reaching the point where Yuki Matsui and Shintaro Fujinami start regressing, so hopefully we can add some reinforcements to our bullpen sometime before then. Starting the offseason, we're giving Yoshida a 4-year extension worth a lot less money, and since he's no longer making $18 million a season, we have plenty of money to go after free agents. I do see that Yusei Kikuchi is here, but he's already 36 years old and is quickly regressing, so I am not interested in bringing him in for $23 million a season, especially when Seiya Suzuki is much better and costs way less. He was traded to Philadelphia in 2026, and ever since he's been a good player, so we are throwing him on the board and hoping for the best. Suzuki's gonna be our big signing this year, but next season I'm really hoping for Kodai Senga, who may be 35 years old, but I think he still has a lot left in the tank. He is hitting free agency in 2029, so we have another year, and then the year after that, we can go after Shota Imanaga and potentially make a very good rotation. Imagine if we got those two players and gave a max contract to Roki Sasaki, who is now up to 96 overall and has been nothing short of elite with the Dodgers. He is hitting free agency in 2031, so that is another player to be excited about. However, the Dodgers have another player I'm interested in Hae-Sung Kim, who unlike in real life has not put up the best numbers. He's definitely a bit of a risk, but has 3 years left of arbitration, and fortunately, it's not going to be expensive to get him on our team. We are making this deal, adding another infielder, and with Hae-Sung and Ha-Sung Kim on our team, we should be in pretty good shape. We also still have Ji-Won Bae and Jae-Yeon, so our middle infield is getting pretty crowded. I will say that Hae-Sung Kim is not the best player, as he's only 79 overall with C potential, but on a team like this, we will absolutely take it and try to lock him up for the future. We are also offering a 4-year above market deal to Suzuki, because a team like this needs all the help they can get. He is already making his decision and does sign with the Samurai, so as long as we ignore that we have one of the worst rotations in baseball history, this team is actually looking pretty solid. We now have 2 players above 80 overall, while Hae-Sung Kim and Yuki Matsui are right there. Aside from Suzuki, the only other player we can bring in is Rob Reef-Snyder, who is not very good at 36 years old, but is still better than nothing. We're signing him to a 1-year deal. There's also Keston Hiura, who may have been born in California, but I'm pretty sure that either his father or grandfather was born in Japan, so we're gonna count it. Following last year, where we added 2 new players to the team, we acquire Hae-Sung Kim and Seiya Suzuki, so without a doubt, this is the best lineup that we've assembled so far. However, we are not done entering Season 4, as one player we've had our eye on for quite a while is Sung-Shae Chang, and he still has 6 years of service, so I'm trying to trade for him. In order to get this deal done, I am giving them our worst starting pitcher, Lee Kim, who honestly I don't really see much of a future for, and giving him up to acquire a player like Chang is going to be very worth it. Opening days with the team we just made that trade with, and right away Skeens is throwing at us. We are off to a very good start, as we already have 2 guys on base for Yoshida, who does fly out, and stranding 2 runners on base is not the way we wanted to start our season. Then, even though our offense is better, our rotation is still really bad, as we're down 4 runs, so it seems we still have a long way to go to being anything close to a 500 team. It certainly doesn't help that we're facing Paul Skeens, but here's our new addition, Seiya Suzuki. At least on paper, he's the best hitter on our team, and I'm looking forward to see where he takes this offense, as there's our first run of the year. Paul Skeens is walking a lot of batters as the bases are loaded again, and he only lasted 3 innings, which is a huge win. I can tell we are much better than last year, as the new Samurai Chang goes deep against his former team. What a great start for our rookie shortstop, as we actually have a tie game in the 7th inning. This is not how I expected this game to go after we went down 4-0 in the first inning, but Japan has rallied back, although Chang cannot score another run. That will give the Pirates to take the lead, and they have 2 guys on base, but come up empty. We have a chance to win on opening day, but getting a run from the bottom of our lineup will not be easy. We come up empty, and now we're hoping for the best from Shintaro Fujinami, who loads the bases, and after getting taken out of the game, we lose 6-5. The Pirates walk it off against us, but that was an impressive showing, as our latest acquisition, Chang, had a 3-run shot against the team that traded him. If we play more games like that, I might have to jump into more than just opening day, as we win a series against the Athletics, as we are 2-6 going into scouting, where I see Jason Takahashi at number 4. That is hands down the highest ranking we've seen from a prospect yet, but of course the big concern with Takahashi is that he's a repeat player, and if you remember, after we scouted him last year, he was not ranked. However, there's a good chance that was just a fluke, and he'll actually end up being a good player, but we also have another guy in the top 10, Robert Nomo, who's a 3rd baseman. This is a very good problem to have, as we have not 1, but 2 potential blue chip guys at the top of the draft, and Nomo has very good contact, which would be very helpful. After a pretty bad draft class last year, it seems we hit the jackpot, as the number 20 29 player is from South Korea. Thanks to bad luck from the draft lottery, we have the number 7 pick, which might not be good enough for Takahashi or Nomo, so we're really banking on one of these guys falling to our pick. We are starting off scouting Takahashi and also discovering new players, as that has been the best strategy for the previous 3 years. We are simulating to the next week, winning 2 more games, and as you can see, Takahashi has fallen off. He is still a good player, but not the guy we were hoping that we'd get, as next up is Robert Nomo. We also just discovered 8 pitchers, but unfortunately none of them are from areas that we can draft. That being said, we are simulating another week, and look at all these wins. We just scored 10 runs against the Mariners, so it seems our offense has turned a corner, as we are on pace to have by far our best season yet. Unsurprisingly, Seiya Suzuki is off to a pretty solid start with the Samurai, but our best player has been Sung-Chae Chang, who had the 3-run home run on opening day. That is very good news to start the year, as it also looks like Robert Nomo is the best option in the first round, as he will stay at rank 8 after a week of scouting. He is the best prospect we've ever found, but I'm also hoping for good things from Lee Cho, who's coming in at number 28. This could be the draft class that defines our rebuild, as we have the chance to add another Nishi brother. This time we have Benny Nishi, who looks to be a slightly higher ceiling player than both of his brothers. We are throwing him straight onto the board and simulating the final week of April, and after a week of scouting, Nishi will stay at rank 67, which is definitely a good sign. That will give us another solid starting pitcher, which is definitely good because we didn't discover anyone. So now we're moving on to international catchers. At the start of May, we are 11-24, which I think is better than last year, and that definitely makes sense as Chang continues his Rookie of the Year campaign. Him being our best player was definitely not on my bingo card, especially after adding Seiya Suzuki, who to be fair is not playing bad in his own right. Unfortunately though, both of the Kims really need to figure it out as they're hitting well under 200. Simming forward a week, we get some unfortunate news as just like last year, Philip Young is unranked. While the top of our draft board looks pretty good, it seems the back end is very weak, although here's David Kim. His potential range is very wide, but he does have the chance to become the 3rd Kim in our infield, and he's coming in with a low overall, which tells me that his potential is going to be pretty good. Along with Kim, I also found a solid bullpen arm in Daniel Watanabe, who's coming in at rank number 147. We're still well under 500, so there's no point in jumping into more games. Although at the start of June, we are 21-44, which is certainly improvement. Checking out the stats, Ha-Sung Kim is starting to turn his season around, which we definitely need. And checking in with our 2 bullpen arms, Yuki Matsui is having another good season, but Shintaro Fujinami is starting to regress. He has been so good the previous 3 seasons, but it seems he's finally fallen off, and that means there's a very good chance he's not a part of our future. Fortunately though, on the scouting end of things, we finally discovered our first player of the cycle, and it seems this 3rd baseman has a pretty high ceiling. Chu Ye is the next player we're throwing on the board, but hopefully we can also find an outfielder because we're pretty weak at that position. Going into the draft, we continue losing more and more games, but in season number 4, I'm still focused on building the best farm system that I can, and this draft class gives us a great chance to do that. There are 7 draftable players in this class, and while we're likely only gonna get one of Robert Nomo, Jason Takahashi, and Lee Cho, either way, we're gonna land one of our best prospects of the entire rebuild. If we had the number 1 pick, I would be taking Robert Nomo right now, but of course the lottery screwed us over, so all we can do is hope that he drops to pick number 7. In this universe, the Yankees have the 5th overall pick, and we are 1 selection away from our guy. I am begging the White Sox to not pull the trigger on the 3rd baseman, and they do not. The player we wanted the entire time falls right into our lap, as we're taking easily the best player we've seen so far, and I am not hesitating. Robert Nomo, welcome to Japan. Now I do feel like there's a chance for Lee Cho to fall to our 2nd selection, as he dropped to rank 49, and we're selecting at pick number 39. We are simulating forward, and unfortunately both players are gone. Takahashi went at number 18 to the Red Sox, while Cho went to the Mariners at 24, and we have back-to-back selections at 39 and 40, and we're starting out taking Benny Nishi, who will complete the trio of starting pitchers named Nishi. After missing out on Takahashi, I'm hoping that he's a good player, and now at number 40 overall, we're selecting another 3rd baseman in Chu Ye. I would have preferred if he was an outfielder, but maybe one of our guys can move over, as we simulate to round 3, where we're taking David David Kim. He could very well be our highest potential player of the entire draft, and he should give us another option in the infield as we end things off with Daniel Watanabe. We cannot see the ratings yet, but I would bank on that being our best draft class yet, as we took 3 infielders, a starting pitcher, and a reliever. At the break, we are 28-69 and are on pace for our best record ever, and that does make sense as looking at the stats, Seiya Suzuki's leading us in RBIs and home runs, while Sung-Chae Chang continues to be the biggest surprise of the season. He is currently in first place for Rookie of the Year, which is a huge deal, as with the regression of Ha-Sung Kim and Seiya Suzuki, we need somebody to step up. Another player who's regressing is Masataka Yoshida, who is 34 years old, and this has been by far his worst season with the Samurai. It is so unfortunate to see most of our core regressing before any of our prospects are ready for the majors, and that also includes Ha-Sung Kim, who we traded for in the offseason, but he is having the worst season of his career. The biggest problem for this team has always been its pitching, but to be fair, there aren't any better options at this point in the rebuild, as so far our only option has been to acquire a regressing Yusei Kikuchi, but this offseason we can also acquire a regressing Kodai Senga. However, at the deadline, the top player available is Young-Hoo Lee, and I feel like I've had my eye on him for the past couple seasons. He's not supposed to hit free agency until 2030, but it seems the Pirates are looking to give up on him right now as he's having an amazing season. In order to get this done, we are sending them Ha-Sung Kim, which gets it pretty close, so this deal will be much easier to pull off than I expected. Even though he's not a pitcher, that's another splash move for the Samurai, whose offense is starting to look pretty scary, so I'm hoping that move can help us finish out the season strong, as it is time to check out our draft pick. I have very high hopes for Robert Nomo and the rest of the class, as we're jumping straight in, and honestly, he's a little bit worse than I expected. Without a doubt, he's still one of our best prospects, coming in at 61 overall straight out the gate, and with contact like this, he should be on a fast track to the majors. That is a huge addition, along with Benny Nishi, who's coming in at 76 potential, and then with our 3rd and 4th picks, we went back to the infield, getting 2 more guys above 80 potential. Both Chu Ye and David Kim are gonna take some time to develop, but with their high ceilings, I'm hoping that at least one of them can be a part of the major league squad down the line. Our final selection, Daniel Watanabe, is a little bit disappointing, but I still feel like this is our best draft yet and should help us out for years to come. That is the last thing we need to do this season, as we are set up for a very promising season 5, but despite our new additions, we finished with the same record as last year, 43-119. After adding players like Suzuki, Chang, and Lee, I am surprised that we didn't improve from last year, but it seems the regression of several key players held us back from 50 wins. Yoshida is all the way down to 72 overall after just 1 down year, and Shintaro Fujinami went from 72 to 69 overall. As we've hyped up for 2 seasons, we are going after Kodai Senga, as he may be 36 years old, coming off of a pretty bad season, but it's still better than any of our other options. 22.7 million will probably be an overpay. Giving him a multi-year deal at 36 years old likely isn't very smart, but I don't think we have a choice. Not only is our offensive core starting to regress, but I'm also planning to call up several of our top prospects, as many of them are ready. We're giving Kodai Senga a 3-year deal, which is the longest we're able to do, and no one's interested in him, so I feel like he might actually sign this. After a few weeks of negotiating, we signed Kodai Senga, and that will be our only move of the offseason, just because there's no other options. I don't think that one 36-year-old starting pitcher is going to make much of a difference from this team, so hopefully regressing players like Ha-Sung Kim and Seiya Suzuki can bounce back, along with seeing a full year from Young-Hoo Lee. Senga's in the rotation, but we need to see more from our bullpen guys. Our goal this season is to win 50 games, and several prospects are ready to come up and could be the difference between achieving that goal or failing once again. We will almost definitely see John Ono and William Choi at some point this year, along with several other C potential pitchers like Yamaguchi, Seo, and Albert Nishi. I'm feeling much better about this opening day with Kodai Senga on the mound, but he gives up 2 home runs in his first at bat. That is definitely not the start I was hoping for, but Ji-Won Bae is gonna drive in 2 runs to tie it up. It's great to see our offense rally after a tough first inning, as Yoshida gives us the lead, but not long after that, Senga gave up another 2 runs. We've been back and forth all game long, and here's another dinger. So unfortunately, just as we've gotten used to, we lose on on opening day once again. Not a good start for Senga and the Samurai as we advance to the first week of scouting, and while our season is not off to a good start, we have the #1 overall pick, and I'm hoping we can find another blue chip level player in the draft, as here is Ken Yamamoto. He is a switch hitting center fielder ranked number 12 in the draft, so that's a pretty good start as we're throwing him on the board and hoping we can discover some more pitchers. Moving towards the future, outfield is definitely a position of need with Masataka Yoshida and Seiya Suzuki regressing, and even though center fielder William Choi is looking to make his debut very soon, with the other one being the highest rated prospect in the organization. And that might be his full-time position in MLB since we have not been able to find one through 5 seasons. That means it's only more important for Ken Yamamoto to be a good player, as we are simulating the next week and hoping he doesn't go down. We advance the week, and as you can see, he is down to rank number 25. Obviously that isn't great, but with his combination of contact and speed, he should still be a pretty good player. Then after Yamamoto, we are scrolling to find the next highest rated prospect from Japan, and it looks like it's shortstop Steven Irabu. He was in last year's class, although he was not ranked, which is not a great sign, although it seems he has a decently high ceiling, so I'm throwing him on the board. So far the Samurai are 4-12 and aren't looking much better than they were last year, but after scouting, Steven Irabu looks like a very good player. He has climbed to rank 37 on the board, and between him and Yamamoto, we have 2 very good players to take with our first 2 selections. Looking for our next highest ranked prospect, we find a player from Chinese Taipei. It's been a while since we found a player from there, but this is a high ceiling starting pitcher that I'm very excited about, although his name definitely looks familiar. Just as I expected, he has the same name as the left fielder I was just talking about, and I did look up a guide on how to pronounce this, and honestly it's such a tongue twister that I'm not even gonna try. To sum it up, not only do we have 3 guys named Nishi, but now 2 guys with the same exact name, but for what it's worth, I do think who is gonna be a good player. Right now, starting pitcher is probably our biggest position of need, as we've drafted several over the years, but none of them have a high ceiling at all. However, most of the guys that we have drafted are up in AAA, and with Kodai Senga regressing, we could definitely use more help, so the call-ups could be sooner rather than later. The same thing can also be said for our bullpen, as we have 3 guys above 70 overall, so at least this is looking a bit better. Fortunately, Senga's getting hot, so the Samurai are 9-18 to start the year, and at least in their book, that's not bad. We also just scouted our second shortstop, and he did not disappoint, rising 33 spots in our rankings up to 67. I know we had a very good draft class back in season 3, but it seems this one could be even better, as we're getting a high ceiling pitcher along with 3 position guys. I also said earlier in the rebuild that we will not be getting a pitcher named Yamamoto, although it seems I'm wrong. Hideki Yamamoto is a solid looking reliever with a very good walks per 9, which at least to me is the most important stat, so I'm throwing him on the board. Behind the scenes though, the Samurai continue to win more games as they secure 5 victories in the first 12 days of the month. We've been very patient developing our prospects, trying not to waste their service time, but at some point we have to pull the trigger and try to start winning games. At the start of June, we are 22-34 with a win percentage of nearly 40%, and all things considered, the plan for our rebuild has worked out beautifully, as several of our MLB players are on hot streaks at the same time that our AAA players are ready to get called up. In our first wave of call-ups, we are bringing up John Ono, Steven Yamaguchi, William Choi, Albert Nishi, and Walter Seo, along with an interesting player in Akira Yoshida, whose stamina makes me believe he can be a starting pitcher. These upgrades to our rotation are massive, as we have 3 new starting pitchers, along with 2 new bullpen arms, and on top of that, former first-round pick William Choi joins a lineup that is already on fire. But early on in June, the returns are not promising. We're doing a little bit better midway through the month as we win a series against Texas, but at the start of July, it seems that our new additions are still adjusting to MLB. Unlike in previous years though, we're actually getting very good production from our offense, as Seiya Suzuki is having a bounce-back season, while Chang is once again good, along with Ji-Won Bae. He's a guy that's been pretty inconsistent for us, but he's now up to B potential and 81 overall. In the rotation though, Kodai Senga has been okay, while John Ono has really not been good, and if he doesn't figure it out, I might have to send him back down to AAA. Unfortunately, the same can be said for Albert Nishi, while Akira Yoshida is surprisingly the best new addition. He is listed as a reliever for us, but has been a good starting pitcher, so I'm excited to see where this goes, along with the career of Steven Yamaguchi. He has been 74 overall ever since the day day we drafted him, and even though he does not have a high ceiling, he's putting up very impressive numbers. It has been a great start for him, along with a solid start for Walter Seo, and that is encouraging because we need bullpen depth right behind Yuki Matsui. We are just a few weeks away from the draft, where I'm looking forward to taking a good player in the first round, but late in the cycle, we just found a potential gem in Tom Park. He may not be that good of a player, but he went from not ranked to 111, so we'll take whatever we can get, as this may be the most draftable players we've ever had, and we should be able to put together a solid class. 7 draftable players is the most we've ever had, and I'm very excited about it, and I'm just hoping we can get everybody on the board. Obviously, we're taking Ken Yamamoto first overall, but after that, I'm hoping that Steven Irabu falls, because he's a player who's way better than his rating, and we don't want to miss out. Yamamoto's ranking went down, but he should still be a solid outfielder, but in order for this draft to be good, Irabu needs to be available. With our second selection, he's gone. The Pirates ruin our day, taking him way earlier than expected at pick number 25, and there's no question that I'll be making a trade to acquire him. That is one of the first times that we've actually lost a prospect that we've been targeting, but at least there's still plenty of good players left in the draft, as we're taking who? We don't get the shortstop, but we do get our project starting pitcher, which was definitely a need, and simming forward, the Pirates ruin our day once again, except this time it's right in front of us. I really wanted Tom Sheen, and with the Pirates taking the only other shortstop on our board, the potential of this draft goes from very good to pretty average. We've already made a couple trades with Pittsburgh, and now we're going for another one because they took 2 players that I wanted, and once again, we only end up selecting 5 players. On the bright side though, the Samurai are 37-60 entering the All-Star break, and just for reference, their best win total ever is only 43, and we still have half a season to play. Without a doubt, our best player this year has been Ji-Wan Bae, who's also representing us in the All-Star game, as he has pretty much matched Seiya Suzuki offensively, but is far more dynamic. We're still playing the waiting game with our young pitchers, but it seems that Ono and Nishi are both kind of turning things around, while Yamaguchi and Seo have been great in the bullpen. Now approaching the end of August, we are locking down one of our best offensive players just to secure the future, because even though Suzuki and Mazataka Yoshida are regressing, Young-Hoo Lee, William Choi, and Hu should make a pretty good outfield trio for years to come. At the start of August, we are 46-63, which is a noticeable improvement, as we came out of the break on fire, only losing 3 games. Much of our offense is on a hot streak, which is very exciting, and we're also starting to see better results from Nishi, Senga, and Ono. Things are turning around from Japan, and on top of that, it's the start of August, so we can view our draft class, and that is not bad, especially with Hu coming in at 97 potential. He is 64 overall straight out of the gate and looks like our ace of the future, which is something we've been looking for ever since the start of the rebuild. Ken Yamamoto is honestly the player that I expected, and certainly not worthy of the #1 overall pick, as he projects as a 4th outfielder, and these bullpen arms or Tom Park are really nothing special, meaning that Hu is the only reason our class is anywhere decent. I cannot be more excited about pulling this type of player in the draft, as this draft pick has a chance to completely alter our franchise. Also, it seems that the Pirates are looking for revenge for us taking away Young-Hoo Lee and Chang, because they drafted 2 shortstops, including Tom Sheen, who is 75 overall. That is a huge miss, and I'll definitely be trying to trade for him, as he could probably be a starter for us right now. But on top of that, they also took Irabu with their first pick, and he has 85 potential at 59 overall, but it's not even the best shortstop they selected. They found a 98 potential gem player from Texas, but still decided to take 2 of the players that I wanted, and if they had been in this draft class, it would have hands down been the best one we've had yet. We're simulating the rest of the season, where we're still winning a lot of games, including a series to the Dodgers. We just got 2 shutout victories in a row. That is not what I expected from this team, as we are going to finish at 56-80 at the start of September, which is officially our highest win total ever. Seiya Suzuki has surpassed Chang as our best offensive player, but going down the list, this offense is already looking a lot more well-rounded than it did last year. It's also worth noting that William Choi is off to a good start as a rookie with 5 home runs and 14 RBIs, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do in a full year of play. Moving on to the pitching side of things, Nishi and Ono are still not very consistent, but it still feels like we're seeing plenty of progress being made. But I'm seeing some very promising promising sparks from this new look roster as we finish with a much improved 66 and 96 record. We also still have the budget to make a few more moves in the offseason, so I'm looking forward to finding out how we can help this team even more. Looking through free agency, we could use another starting pitcher, and thankfully, Shota Imanaga is here. Just like Senga was last year, he is 36 years old and is starting to regress, but I still feel like we can get a few more good years out of him. Along with Imanaga, I also really want these shortstops from the Pirates, so I'm giving up 2 B potential project guys in order to get them. We gave up a lot to get both guys, but I think it's worth it considering Tom Sheen is pretty much pro ready, and alongside him, we get another developmental infielder. Just like last year with Senga, we are offering Shota Imanaga 3-year deal worth less money per year than he's asking for, as we need to save money to sign Roki Sasaki next season. It didn't take long for Imanaga to join the team, so in just 2 seasons, we have an entirely new rotation that is only getting better. In the future, we could be adding Roki Sasaki and the current number 3 prospect in baseball, which is very exciting. However, having 2 prospects with the same name is just a little bit too confusing, so because he's the newest, I'm changing the pitcher to a name submitted by one of my channel members. He will now be called Daisuke Nakano. Going into season number 6, we have managed to replace every single player in the lineup except for the catcher. Obviously, there's other spots where we could upgrade, like first base and DH, as Masataka Yoshida is getting up there, but the top of our lineup is looking really impressive. I also think that Who can be a long-term solution at catcher, as it's listed in his secondary positions, and it's very unlikely that we'll actually find a catcher in the draft. Opening day is against Tampa Bay as we win it 3-1, and that's a really impressive start for our new look team as we win this series 2 out of 3. We also follow up with another series win against Philadelphia, so things are off to a great start, and now we're entering another scouting cycle with the number 2 overall pick. It didn't take long for us to find our first player from Japan in Robert Yamaguchi, and while I feel like I've seen this name before, he looks like a good player. That is a good start as we're throwing him on the board and starting our discovery process, and I'm curious if we can stay above 500 as we're 8-6. Unfortunately, Robert Yamaguchi is not great, but we don't really need him to be, as it feels like our first rounders have never really been that important. We are scouting our first starting pitcher of the cycle in Philip Yang, and hopefully he ends up being pretty good because we could really use another starter as we win 5 games in a row. At the start of May, we are 17-12 and only a game back of first place in the division, and despite the regression of much of our core, it seems we're actually holding together pretty well. Specifically, William Choi is off to an amazing start with an OPS above 1,000, and keep in mind that he's a full-time player, which is amazing. This is the hottest start that our offense has ever gotten off to, and it's showing in our record, as Seiya Suzuki is hitting 327 with an 851 OPS. On top of that, this rotation is night and day as Kodai Senga and Shota Imanaga are playing pretty consistently, but the big story has been John Ono, who is 76 overall, but has posted a 1.62 ERA. Early on, this new core is really gelling, and that could lead us to a breakout season, and I'm grateful we're getting better because this is looking like one of our worst draft classes ever. So far, I've only found 4 draftable players, and all of them are worse than their ranking, so we're gonna need something else to keep us excited about the season. We are currently half a game back at the Padres, going into our final game of the series against them, which we do lose. So instead of taking the division lead, we are still a wild card team, and we finally discovered a Japanese player. This is Tadahito Takahashi, and even though he's not going to be a 90 overall, I will take whatever we can get. At the start of June, we have actually taken the division lead, which is a huge surprise, as we all expected this team to improve, but I never expected them to be in first place. A huge reason for that has been the play of 34-year-old Ha-Sung Kim, who is on pace to have the best season of his career, as he already has 1 more RBI than he did the entire season last year. Additionally, Young-Hoo Lee, Seiya Suzuki, and William Choi are still playing very well, aside from Masataka Yoshida and our catchers. That is a position we still need to upgrade at, and 2 months into the year, Who is at 70 overall. I think it's finally time to pull the trigger, as I am changing his primary position over to catcher, and even though his overall does go down to 68, he's still a better option than either of the players we currently have. With that addition, we have officially replaced our entire lineup with players from either Japan, South Korea, or Taiwan. The one exception is still Keston Hiura, but as I explained earlier in the video, we're gonna count him at least for now. We have quickly developed into a playoff caliber offense, but aside from John Ono, this rotation is pretty shaky. Both Shota Imanaga and Kodai Senga continue to regress, and all I can say is Roki Sasaki is gonna hit like crack. We're simulating the month of June just to see where we stand as we get swept by the Dodgers, and while that isn't a surprise, we are now in third place in the division. Unfortunately, several of our key players all hit cold streaks at the same time, which sent us into a bit of a spiral, and if we want to make the playoffs, we have to snap out of it in the back half of the year. As players continue to get older and closer to retirement, I am genuinely worried about the amount of talent that we have coming into the system, as this draft class only has 6 draftable players, and one of those guys is injured. Along with that, Ichiro Amasa and Stephen Fong both don't look very good, so we are counting on the top 3 players to carry the draft class. With our first selection, we are taking center fielder Robert Yamaguchi, who at least should be a solid bench bat for us, even though he's not the most electric prospect. As a discovery player, Tadahito Takahashi should not go until later in the draft, making him a solid option for our second selection, but I spoke too soon. We get very unlucky with the Dodgers taking him at number 26, and just like last year with the Pirates, I will be trying to trade for him. In hindsight, I should have drafted him at number 2 because I like him a lot more than Yamaguchi, and honestly, the rest of this draft class looks like it could be our worst yet. We close things out taking a relief pitcher in Stephen Fong, and all I can say is we're very lucky that it took 6 seasons for us to have a genuinely bad draft. We are currently 2 games back in our division with 4 players 80 overall or above, but we also might be the oldest team in baseball with several players really getting up there. With a lineup full of dinosaurs, our championship window might be more limited than I expected, especially because I don't think we can rely on former draft picks alone to win us a World Series. I am seeing a lot of snowflakes in here, but at least the offensive numbers are still pretty solid, as we have a handful of starters above 700 OPS. Despite that though, the Samurai are currently ranked 25th in batting average, which is really not good, and total runs is not much better. Looking at the team stats, I have no idea how we're in position to make the wild card. As compared to other teams, we're doing pretty much nothing above average. Regardless, we continue to win games, which in my book is the only stat that matters, as we start out the second half with a sweep against Minnesota. That takes us into August, where we are 58-50, which is only half a game in front of LA. I'm definitely worried about them because even 6 years in, they are still going strong with Shohei Ohtani, Roki Sasaki, and now Elly De La Cruz. There's no way we're a better team than them, as the game still has us ranked 30th, which is not good for my confidence moving forward, as this was a disaster of a draft. The number 2 overall pick was our only guy in the 70 potentials, as just as I feared, this class gave us a whole lot of nothing. It also doesn't help that my favorite player on the board went to the Dodgers, and he is coming in with 72 overall and good contact right away. We are simulating the month of August, trying to catch up to the Padres, and the month started out pretty good, but fell apart quickly after. As a result, we are now 6 games back in the division, with the Dodgers just 1 game behind San Diego, and that losing skid puts us completely out of the playoffs. We're gonna sim to the end of the season, but no matter what happens in September, it is important to note that we're still ahead of schedule, as our goal coming in was simply to be a 500 team. All things considered, we have definitely accomplished that, but facing San Diego and LA in September is gonna bury us. The Samurai finished the season in 3rd place for the NL West with an 82-80 record, which was 11 games behind the Dodgers. After the way the season started, I'm certainly disappointed, but we might have a secret weapon coming in to save us, as Los Angeles still has not re-signed their best player, and he is from Japan. This could be our biggest offseason ever, because the number 1 free agent on the board is of course Roki Sasaki. Now he obviously wants a lot of money. 7 years, $36.5 million a year is certainly steep, but as a 29-year-old 94 overall pitcher, we need to make a splash, and this is the perfect player to do it. It's gonna be pretty competitive, so I might even need to overpay for him and give him a 10-year deal or something, but right now that feels like our only chance to actually win a World Series. However, now I'm curious, how much would it cost to get Yoshinobu Yamamoto? He's 90 overall at 32 years old, and getting him alongside John Ono, Shota Imanaga, and Kodai Senga would complete the rotation. I'm gonna throw him on the board and see what the offer is, and honestly, that's not bad. We can give up Ono and Seo, or we can give up Robert Nomo and David Hu. I think that's a better deal. Just for fun, what if we threw in Michael and Benny Nishi? That gets it way closer than I thought it would, as now our relievers should be able to finish the job. We are getting Yamamoto. That is an insane addition before we can even make an offer for Roki Sasaki, and I'm pretty sure we have the money to get both players. However, now I'm trying to make another trade with the Dodgers because they took Tadahito Takahashi, who I was very interested in the draft. They took him in the first round, and I'm wondering how easily we can trade for him, and clearly it's not going to be worth it. I definitely think he's a good prospect, but not better than any of the players I would have to give up to get him. But I might be able to package something to get him. How about Ichiro Amasa and Philip Sykes, along with probably a C potential prospect at worst? Tom Key's not going to get it done. What if we throw in Tom Park? That is just enough to do it. We get another C potential high floor position guy, and I think this is a very worthwhile deal. Going back to Roki Sasaki though, I definitely need to keep an eye on our budget because I want to be able to sign Sasaki and give an extension to Sung Chae Chang, who's under arbitration. I cannot believe how stacked our rotation has gotten in just a couple seasons, and it all started out with the signing of Kodai Senga before we brought up guys like John Ono and Albert Nishi. Then in the next offseason though, we signed Shota Imanaga, and while we just traded for Yamamoto, the other guy that I have my eye on is last year's second round pick, Daisuke Nakano. He is 68 overall with 97 potential, so in a few years he could be even better than Roki Sasaki. Also, if you're still here and you haven't subscribed yet, please do that. I'm trying to hit 100k before MLB 26. After assigning all of our players, looking at our budget, I do think we can offer this extension to Chang, as we're giving him a 5-year deal for $10.2 million a year. It looks like we're competing with the Mariners, the Dodgers, and another team for Sasaki, and considering that we have never made the playoffs, I'm gonna have to empty out the dump truck if I want a chance to get this guy. He wants 7 years, I'm giving him 9, and how about maxing out his per year as well? We're going up to 45.63. If he doesn't sign that contract, he's not signing any contract, so we're ripping off the band-aid, simming to his contract decision. This is the biggest moment in team history. Roki Sasaki is our white whale, and it's not enough to get it past the finish line. Are you kidding me? That is the most amount of money that's been offered in the history of this YouTube channel, and he just spat in our face and made us look like a fool. But of course, since we're desperate, I'm giving him the same deal again. He has a 79% motivation, so there's no way we don't get him. I'm gonna be so angry if the Dodgers or the Mariners come out of nowhere to steal our guy, as we have another contract decision, and this time I'm hoping for better results. I'm seeing pen to paper, that's always a good sign, and there we go. We sign Roki Sasaki and get a trophy. That's very nice. This contract is gonna put us in bankruptcy, but honestly, it's all worth it to get a guy like Sasaki, who's gonna come in and immediately be our ace, with Yamamoto serving as his number 2. That is a 9-year, $410 million contract for Roki Sasaki, who hopefully can lead us to the World Series. This is the roster that will hopefully carry us to the playoffs in season number 7, I believe, and it's been a very long journey to get here, so we are going all in. All the remaining players in our farm system that are close to ready are getting the call-up, such as Jaeon and Tadahito Takahashi, along with former first-rounder Robert Nomo and Tom Sheen. We do have a bit of a logjam in the middle infield, so I'm going to move Jaeon over to first base, as he's definitely got the size for it at 6'5", 233 pounds. He will be the starter at that position over Keston Hiura, as they have pretty similar contact and power numbers, but On's plate skills take him over the top. Here's the starting lineup entering season number 7, as William Choi is our leadoff hitter, followed by Ji-won Bae and Young-hoo Lee at 2 and 3. Then there's our catcher, who played his rookie season last year and actually played pretty well, ending off with a 798 OPS. I'm looking forward to seeing what Who can do in his first full season, along with Robert Nomo and Jaeon. Then on the bench, we've got Tom Sheen, Masataka Yoshida, Keston Hiura, and Tadahito Takahashi. This is easily the most complete lineup we've seen yet, and I'm very excited for opening day. Then of course, in the rotation, this is not right. We've got to get our white whale Roki Sasaki in there, along with Yamamoto. Not only are we getting better, but these players were both on the Dodgers, so in the process of improving our rotation, we're hurting our division rival. Number 3 has got to be John Ono after the year that he had last year, and at number 4, we'll throw in Shota Imanaga, while giving the final spot in the bullpen to Albert Nishi instead of Senga. Senga is 38 years old and has a pretty terrible walks per 9, as opposed to Nishi, who at this point is a much better starting option, although Senga will be a long reliever. reliever, while Senga will stay in the bullpen. Instead of making him a long reliever though, I think Senga is better suited as a medium reliever as he has 73 clutch. He will join Steven Yamaguchi along with Akira Yoshida, while our setup man is 75 overall Walter Seo, and our closer is still Yuki Matsui. There's not a single player on our opening day roster that is not East Asian, which is a huge W and is exactly where we want it to be at this point in the franchise. And now it's opening day against the Cardinals, where we go up 1-0. It has been a great debut for Roki Sasaki, who has only given up one hit to the Cardinals, and now we score another run. That was the first career RBI for Jay-On as Sasaki continues to hold them down, and that's a nice relief considering we're paying him $45 million a season. It is still 2-0 going into the 9th inning, but there's another run, and that will be the dagger. Walter Seo closes it out, and the Samurai win 3-0 on opening day. 3 runs on 11 hits is not ideal, but it's nice to see a multi-hit performance from the rookie Robert Nomo, along with an RBI from Jay-On. Sasaki tossed 8 scoreless innings in his first start. That puts our record at 2-0 to start the year, and while I'm gonna look at the draft class this year, I really don't think it's necessary as we are winning so many games. Going into our first week of scouting, we are leading the division at 8-2, and while we're much better as a team, I'm not gonna say anything yet because we started out strong last year and then collapsed in the month of September. We are picking at number 14 in the draft, which is the exact ranking of our first prospect, Tom Yu, and while we have a lot of middle infielders, I'll always take another one. We're gonna move pretty fast through scouting because my full attention is currently on the season that we're playing, as we are still in first place midway through April, which I think is the longest we've held a division lead. The shortstop we scouted in the first week was not very good, so we turn our attention to Michael Sasaki, who is far more likely to be our first round pick because look at that contact. That is mature hitting for a team that's gonna need another outfielder. If we draft him and he's anywhere near as good as he seems, he might be on the opening day roster, but in the same week, we also discover closing pitcher Richard Bong. That could be a good pull considering that Yuki Matsui's getting very old, and while he's not ranked, his ceiling looks very good, so I'm hoping that can change. Everything about this season feels good as we are 23-10 on May 4th, and after scouting Richard Bong, he goes up to rank number 62. That is an elite closer for the future, or at least a solid bullpen arm, as our bullpen has gotten several guys over the years that are C potential, but never anybody higher. It's also been a very tough year for Matsui so far, as he's still regressing and is putting up the worst numbers of his career. We knew this would happen sooner or later, but I think Walter Seo needs to be our new closer, as Matsui is just in too much of a spiral. On the scouting end of things, we continue discovering good players, including Tom Lee, who's another starting pitcher. He's got a good walks per 9, so we're throwing him on the board, and why not see if we can find a backup catcher? We have not found a single catcher through 6 drafts so far. Even though we're winning a lot of games, the Padres are now tied with us for the division lead, and checking out their roster, this kind of makes sense as Fernando Tatis is 99 overall, and they also added Garrett Crochet and Tristan Casas from the Red Sox. This is a very good roster that's rebuilt through both free agency and through trades, and they might be a bigger threat at this point than the Dodgers, who are really not the same team they once were. The division is still wide open, and while there are several older players on our roster, it's nice to see the younger guys kind of being the ones who step up. Jay-On in particular has had a great start to the year, posting an 841 OPS, while our catcher Hu leads us in RBIs. Those two players have both been great, but don't forget about William Choi, who has been pretty consistent ever since he got here. The combination of those guys playing well, along with veterans like Suzuki, Kim, and Ji-Wan Bae, is very encouraging for the future, although Masataka Yoshida should be nowhere close to the starting lineup. He's pretty much on his last legs at 37 years old. Other rookies like Robert Nomo and Tom Sheen should get better as the year goes on, and if they do, we might have the best offense in all of baseball. I cannot even explain how excited I am looking at the numbers in the rotation, as the signing of Roki Sasaki has made truly all the difference, but it's interesting to see that Yamamoto is putting up better numbers than him pretty much across the board. That is a great problem to have when you trade for 2 all-star caliber players, but it's also fun to see that Shota Imanaga and Kodai Senga, who apparently earned his way back into the rotation, are also putting up good numbers despite regressing pretty heavily over the past few years. Everyone in our rotation is putting up an ERA below 4, which prior to this year was completely unheard of. The bullpen's a bit of a different story, as Yuki Matsui's struggling but starting to put up slightly better numbers in his new role, so hopefully he continues to improve as Walter Seo and Akira Yoshida have been our best options. Also, in case you were wondering what happened to Shintaro Fujinami, I think it's fair to say that he will never be seeing the field for us ever again. It has been a sad period of regression for him as he's 36 years old and is already down to 58 overall, as he was a pretty good player in the early years of the Samurai, but only got worse after 2027. At the start of June, we are 38-20, which is 3 games ahead of the Padres in the West, and our offense continues to produce, although we're starting to slow down just a bit. I guess that's not unexpected with the larger sample size, but I'm seeing a lot more OPSs below 800, and looking at the stats on the year, we are 24th in hits, which is below average as we're in the middle of the pack for runs at 16th. The biggest reason we're in first place is that our ERA is the best in the entire league, and it seems we are not slowing down as while Yamamoto's fallen apart, John Ono's playing a lot better along with Imanaga and Senga. Then at long reliever, there's also Albert Nishi and Brian Choi, so I think we're in pretty good hands. I'm a little bit worried that the Samurai are hitting a slump as they lose a series to the Dodgers before bouncing back against San Diego. I'm definitely glad we didn't spiral as we have another series against LA and we win it 3-4. That is domination. It turns out that if your team is struggling to win games, literally becoming the Dodgers can fix that. And early on in this video, I didn't know if this rebuild would be sustainable after all of the current Japanese guys retired, but our farm system has been shockingly consistent. Before the draft, we are DFAing Keston Hiura, who's just not cutting it, and in his place, we are calling up Chu Lin, who is dominating at AA, and as a result, his contact is looking very good. It's a little unfortunate that the game waited until season number 7 to give us easily our best draft of the entire rebuild. There are 7 players with draft rankings. With our first pick, I'm really banking on getting Michael Sasaki, who has amazing contact and should be able to replace Seiya Suzuki, who's hitting free agency next year. We are picking at number 14, which is a little further back than we're used to, and I'm just gonna simulate to our next selection. Sasaki is still on the board. Funny enough, Tom Yu actually went before him, and I think he's a far worse player, so our bad draft luck comes to an end as we take the guy that we want. We select a premium high floor contact hitter, and simming to our next selection, I'm seeing a couple discovery players along with an outfielder who's not very good. Usually I would wait on discovery guys, but I've been missing out on a lot more lately and really don't want to miss out on Tom Lee, so we're taking him right here and hoping that Saito is still on the board. Unfortunately, after simulating, one of the outfielders that we wanted is gone, but that is perfectly fine because his offensive upside is really not there. That guy is never going to be a major league player, so I don't feel bad about missing him. I'm going to take a chance because discovery closers tend to last until the end of the class. Simming ahead, Philip Kim is off the board, so even though we had 7 draftable guys on the board, we only managed to get a few of them. Nonetheless, I'm still happy with the guys that we do get as we close things out with Richard Bong and finally get ourselves a high ceiling closer. At the break, we are 63-34, which is 10.5 games above the Dodgers, and while we're playing very well, I don't think this is the year that we win the World Series, just because our young guys are still pretty raw and have a long way to go. However, that does make things a little bit interesting as guys like Seiya Suzuki and Ha-Sung Kim are in the final year of their deals, so we could very well be losing 2 key offensive players to free agency. That would put a lot of pressure on the offense along with our pitching rotation, which is still looking lights out. Literally every single player is performing, which is much more than I could ever ask for, and that success sort of extends into our bullpen with Akira Yoshida, Walter Seo, and Tommy Song. In the excitement of the season, I completely forgot that we have the number 2 prospect in baseball, Daisuke Nakano, on the way up. He is everything that we expected, putting up elite numbers in AA, and as a result, he is getting the call up to AAA. Despite our success this season, I'm not seeing any players near the top of All-Star voting, and while the league does require us to have at least 1 All-Star, I really wish it was earned because I don't think we've had a legitimate All-Star through 7 seasons. After simulating, we can see that our default All-Star was our catcher, who definitely did not deserve it, as he did start the year off on a good note, but his numbers have only gotten worse. Regardless though, it seems our offense is starting to improve, as we're now 14th in hits as opposed to 22nd, and as far as runs go, last time we checked we were 16th, and we are now up to 12th. However, as our offense has gotten better, our pitching has taken a bit of a step back, going from 1st to 3rd in ERA. The second half feels like a make or break for this team, and so far the results are pretty mixed out of the break, although we still have a great cushion with a 10.5 game lead. That makes me a lot more confident as we lose a series against Baltimore, but we rebound by beating the Cubs. This will bring our record to 69-41 at the start of August, as we are still 10 games in front of the Dodgers, and checking out the draft class, that's kind of what I expected. Michael Sasaki's gonna be a very low ceiling, high floor player at 73 potential, which is still lower than I expected, but with contact and plate skills like this, he should at least be a solid 4th outfielder. Not exactly what you look for in your first round pick, but this rebuild is anything but traditional, and we sort of made up for it with our second selection taking Tom Lee. His potential is 79, which is only 2 points away from John Ono, but the biggest plus with him is he's coming in with 57 walks per 9, which is the most important stat in the game. Those are very solid numbers for an 18-year-old, as we took another one with our third pick, and honestly, Albert Saito's a bit of a one-trick pony who can hit for power, but doesn't do anything else well. Easily our best, as we selected Richard Bong, and without a doubt, he is our closer of the future, coming in at 93 potential and 60 overall. Keep in mind, this is a discovery guy too, so our scouts really cooked in finding him. I can't believe that our catcher is still leading our team in RBIs with 69, despite putting up a 229 average, and I think that goes to show that our offense truly does not have a superstar. Seiya Suzuki is having a great year at 36 years old, despite being 72 overall and still regressing, but maybe the best all-around player on the team right now is William Choi. Not only does he play pretty solid defense, but he's been a great contact hitter for us ever since being called up in 2029. While our older players are still putting up pretty good numbers, I keep forgetting just how old this roster is, so we need the youth movement to really step up, as most of our infield is now made up of young talent, which is a little bit intimidating, but also exciting. Right now we have a comfortable lead, so I'm simulating the entire month of August, but it looks like we're losing a lot more games than we've been used to. Thankfully though, it's not been a good year in our division, so we are still in first place by 10 games. So unless something indescribable happens, we are making the playoffs as we simulate the month of September and are picking up steam, almost making it to 100 wins. In Roki Sasaki's first year, we make it to September for the very first time. In Roki Sasaki's first season, we make it to the playoffs for the very first time, despite not looking very good on paper. Our championship window is officially open as we have a combination of young players and old players stepping up for the squad, as guys like William Choi and Sung Hyun Hyu look like the future of the squad. If I just butchered that name, I totally apologize. I'm never gonna try that again. Going down the board though, I'm a little concerned about the consistency of our offense, as we had several guys above 700 OPS, but also just as many guys below 700. Hopefully though, that can all be balanced out by our pitching rotation, which was hands down one of the best, if not the best in baseball. It was also a pretty solid year for our bullpen, as Walter Seo in his first year as closer had 50 saves, and overall these numbers are amazing. His whip was nearly 1. Now I've gotta check, because that is reliever of the year material if I've ever seen it, and here's Roki Sasaki winning his second Cy Young. That is number 2 in 3 years for Roki, who has truly become one of baseball's best pitchers, and he should be on a fast track for the Hall of Fame. On another note, our new closer does win reliever of the year, once again showing that it was a great decision to replace Matsui with him. We had a lot of rookies on the team, and Jae-on nearly won rookie of the year, but Charlie Condon's 100 RBIs were a bit too much to beat. I'm a little surprised to see that Condon is a rookie at 27 years old, and I'm sure that Rockies fans are hoping that doesn't happen. It is time for the playoffs though, where we're taking on the winner of the wild card game, which are the Cincinnati Reds. I'm definitely thankful that this is the squad we're taking on, as they no longer have Ellie De La Cruz, although they replace him with Jackson Churio and Bryce Miller. Overall, this is a pretty well-balanced team, and I'm curious to see how we match up against them. We are really counting on Roki Sasaki to carry us through the playoffs, especially because I do not know how much pop our offense is going to give us. So far, we have only gotten on base one time, and that was a single, so I'm not liking our chances, although Roki is shutting them down, and there's our catcher launching a nuke. The fact that we found a guy that could even play catcher at all is a miracle, let alone as a secondary position, and with a 3-0 lead, make that 4-0, we might have just sealed the game. We were trying to start the playoffs with a shutout victory, and we almost blew it, but at the end of the day, a W is a W. Our first ever playoff game ends in a victory, and now with Yamamoto on the mound, we are simulating hitting and lose. We really needed that one as John Ono's on the mound yet, and we are losing the series 2-1. It is now an elimination game, and there's no way I'm starting a 72 overall, so I think our best bet is to go back to Sasaki, who is not full energy. It has been a great season for the Samurai, and they're trying to keep it alive, putting up 2 runs in the first inning. That is exactly what we needed as we continue to pour it on, making it 7-0 with another home run. Japan keeps their season alive with 12 runs in the first 3 innings, and I'm taking back any bad thing I said about this offense, especially our catcher who had 7 RBIs. It all comes down to Game 5 as Yamamoto is on the mound but gives up an early run. That is not a good start to this game, but our catcher delivers again. That will give us the early lead, and after a rough start, Yamamoto is holding it down as we score another run in the 4th and continue pouring it on. We have come back from down 2 games in the series, and it looks like we're moving on to the next round as good pitching and a dominant offense send us to the NLCS. We are riding high after a great series, but now we're facing what might be the best big 3 I've seen since the Miami Heat. We are not only facing Ronald Acuna, but also Gunnar Henderson and Tarek Skubal, but we're off to a great start. However, a 1-0 lead will likely not go a long way against a team like Atlanta, who can score at pretty much any time, although so far our pitching is bending but not breaking. We extend our lead even further, and with the bases loaded, we score another run, and surprisingly, this game has been an absolute breeze. I cannot explain how big of a deal it is to win the first game of the series as we're leading 9-4, and I don't know where this offensive performance was during the regular season, but it's making all the difference. Every single player in the lineup had a hit, while we also went yard 3 times as a team, and now in Game 2, Shota Imanaga's going up against Drew Hackenberg, getting the win. We are off to the best possible start, but now it's time for the matchup that we have all been waiting for. It's Roki Sasaki versus Tarek Skubal. As expected, it is still 0-0 in the 3rd inning as we're going into the 4th, and neither side is giving up, although we could score here, we don't, and then they hit a dinger. This is a literal clash of the titans, but there we go yard off of Skubal. That could very well make all the difference as the bases are loaded and we pour it on, going up 6-1. I cannot believe that we are 1 game away from the sweep and making it to the World Series with this team, as Acuna Jr. hit an RBI in the 9th inning, but we're able to survive and stay undefeated. We needed Roki Sasaki to be our hero, and so far in the playoffs, he's been that and so much more as we sweep the Braves. Now in the World Series, we're going to be taking on one of the Sox teams no matter what, and it is Boston. It would have been absolutely insane to take on the White Sox, but that is just not the way the cookie crumbled, as instead we are taking on the Red Sox, who still have Rafael Devers. In this universe, he did not get traded and instead went on to make several All-Star games and win an MVP. I can't believe we made it to the World Series, but to be fair, the competition level has not been great in the playoffs, which works out pretty well for us. However, in Game 1 against Boston, we are already down 1-0, looking for some sort of production from our offense. This is definitely out of character, as we've had no problem getting going in the past, and there's a grand slam. That will immediately give us a 3-run lead, and another run makes it 4, and I have to give credit to 37-year-old Shota Imanaga, who has been lights out today. We just won the first game of the World Series 5-1, as a grand slam for the rookie Jay-On powers us to victory. We just beat them 5-1 with a 72 overall pitcher, as Shota Imanaga continues to be one of our best free agent signings ever. In his entire time with the Samurai, he has played well above his rating, and now we're in a very close 0-0 game. We are tied up 1-1 in the 4th inning, and with the bases loaded, Jay-On is gonna beat this out. However, once again, Boston would tie it up, and we are really struggling to get on base at all, as it is still 2-2 in the bottom of the 8th, and we cannot score Suzuki from second. This game could very well go to extra innings, although Yuki Matsui is threatening to blow it for us, so we are putting in Walter Seo, trying to clean it up, but he gives up a run. Now the Samurai need a rally if they want to get to 2-0. Here's a fastball to Ji-Won Bae, and he launches it into right field. That is gone. As Japan can walk it off in front of their home crowd, they just killed their pitcher. That was absolutely brutal. However, Andrew Walters gets up after taking that one off his skull, and while there's no question he's in the afterlife, I gotta respect the hustle. There are now 2 guys on for William Choi, who drives this deep into left center field, and that will advance runners to the corners, as Young-Hoo Lee has a chance to end it. Can he pull it off with 2 outs? He gets underneath that one, and it's an infield fly. That means we are going to extra innings where we are unable to score a run, and because we already used Walter Seo, we're counting on the rest of our bullpen. Fortunately, it is still tied up in the bottom of the 11th as Jaeon gets on base, but we cannot score again. It seems this one is gonna come down to the wire as Boston does score a run, so once again, we need a rally, and you've gotta be kidding me. This game is incredible. We are once again tied up, and there's another home run. Ha-Sung Kim walks it off for the Samurai, who are 2-0 in the World Series, and at this point, I'm not sure if anybody can beat them. Their offense came alive at just the right moment, and with Roki Sasaki on the mound, we're trying to make it 3-0, and we do. That was a 7-2 victory where our offense continues to shine, as over half of our lineup is on a hot streak, and the Red Sox are facing elimination. The Samurai are 1 victory away from winning it all in just their 7th season, and their catcher has been absolutely ridiculous in the playoffs. However, Boston is not done yet, taking the lead in the bottom of the 3rd inning, as Yamamoto gives up 3 runs, and we are not scoring another. Ever since that 1st inning, Quinn Priester has had no problem shutting us down, but right on cue, Robert Nomo makes it a tie game. I can't remember the last time we lost a game, as we got hot at just the right time, and now Game 4 of the World Series is going to extras. We are trying to keep the win streak alive as Tommy Song checks into the game and currently has 2 men on with 2 outs. However, he does get out of it, and Lee gets hit by a pitch, so maybe we can score him as we get 2 aboard ourselves. Jaeon has been so good in the playoffs, and he has a chance to score the go-ahead run as this clears the infield, the runner's coming around, and he is safe. Japan is now just 3 outs away from winning the World Series, and they have reliever of the year Walter Seo looking to end it. He's already struck out 1 batter and gets the 2nd one looking. So it all comes down to this. There's the fastball, lifted into right field. Does it have the distance? It will not. Just 7 seasons after being founded, the Japan Samurai are World Series champions, as over the years they acquired several players from East Asia to eventually win the title. This might have been the most fun rebuild I've ever done, as we balanced youth and veterans to build a championship core, and while I didn't expect us to win the World Series this early on, we get it done. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like and help the channel get to 100,000 subscribers before MLB The Show 26.